we recently saw, I think this was yesterday, a retired police chief from North Carolina was detained by U.S. Customs for over 90 minutes. Hassan Aden, he flies so frequently, everybody knows his name. It's like Cheers, but in the skies. He usually has no problems until finally this time when he traveled last week, he had trouble. He had just come back from visiting his mother for her 80th birthday, I think it says, and he was detained at JFK. He just said it was just a problem. He said that he told him that he was a U.S. citizen. It didn't matter. There was, and this is a police officer. This is a former police chief, right? So he has a good sense in theory about what his rights and laws and stuff, his rights and what the law and how this should go. And he's been traveling internationally for a long time, so he understands what the process is. And so he said he was concerned about, their understanding of what the Fourth Amendment, like what they were allowed and what they were not allowed to do. He was concerned about, the detention, why he was even being detained. And he said he's still not even sure why he was detained at all. There were about 25 foreign nationals were also brought in and quickly released. Their detentions were reasonable and appropriate, maybe 5 or so minutes while their passports were checked. He said that his name was used as an alias by someone else on a watch list. And they finally were able to get his information to de-conflict and clear him. But he said in some parts of the world, Hassan Aden is like Bob Smith. So it's very common, right? And there's a lot of, there's a lot going on, but it kind of shook him, I'm guessing, because it made him feel vulnerable. And I think a lot of us, particularly if you are a U.S. citizen, I mean, we're starting to see incidences where people who are citizens are having issues as well. Like I was just telling David before we came online, my daughter has, a Arabic first and middle name, and she is waiting to travel for the longest. Nayla would always get the increased security ever since we started traveling. This started probably when she was about 3. I remember the first time I was traveling by myself with the kids. Max was a baby and Nayla was 3. Cutest little thing, had her little Dora backpack on, and she was doing it through the airport. But we went through security, and I had to, take Max out of his carrier and stuff like that, and we all had to get wanded down. But Nayla got flagged for extra security, which is she would continue to be the one flagged for extra security all the way up until she was about 12. And that was a horrifying experience because she was 3, and they sent a man over to us, and she's screaming and crying. I'm like, can someone please send us a woman? I'm glad I was there so early for our flight. But it was just like, I could not understand. And this is my kids are teenagers now. So this is like 2004. So this is still in those few early years after post September 11th. And we would have all those other different scares, the shoe bomber and other things like that would happen. So this is when there were still so many crazy things happening, even, then when they were trying to figure out what the policies and stuff were going to be. Finally, I think when she was about 12 was the last time we got seriously flagged. She got flagged. We were in Tampa, flying out of Tampa, visiting my godmom, and they even had to wand down, they had to wipe down her hands, and they asked her, they're like, why are your hands so sweaty? And she's like, well, because I'm only 12, and every time we fly, I have to get frisked, and it really makes me nervous. They're like, what are you nervous? She's like, well, I don't do anything. And it's just like, it's just very stressful for my kid. And I could never understand. So, and how I figured, I would fly by myself and I'd have no issues. I've flown with Max, no issues. It's only when we used to fly with Nayla that we would have issues. It has to be her name, Nayla Azia, which I didn't know in 2000. She's born before 2000. She's born like a month and a half before September 11th. I never thought about it. I don't care. I'd still name her Nayla Azia because it's a beautiful name and has a great meaning. But it's just been very interesting to start thinking about how people are not even necessarily following whatever the alleged rules are, no matter how, illegal or unconstitutional they are. People aren't even sticking to what's like on the paper. So that's the issue of training. That's so many different issues that are just, we have seen that TSA just does its own thing. Like TSA, even though it's illegal, it's unconstitutional, it's been deemed as such already, to pat down hair, particularly with women, with women of color and larger hair. They're not supposed to do that. Like they're not supposed to like just search through your locks or your braids and stuff. They're not supposed to. They still do it anyway. Even though it's been reported, it's been litigated, it's you're not supposed to do it. So there's a lot of rhetoric that's going on, and there's a lot of fast talking and brave talking about the bans and things like that. But we still have to be armed with the information about what our rights and responsibilities are, and we need to train and develop ways to deal with these types of situations. Thankfully, he was only detained for 90 minutes, and it was cleared up, and he was able to go. But I mean, imagine if he didn't have the wherewithal to keep his cool while that was happening, and what could have happened to him. It's like not even like you could think of what can you do better. I mean, people can say, well, don't travel internationally, but what do you do if you're someone who has to do stuff for business, family, or why should our travel be restricted just because? So there's some really interesting considerations.